I want to ask about the dangers of AGI. And gang, I know there's tons of questions for Sam. In a few moments, I'll be turning it up, so start thinking about your questions. A big focus on Stanford right now is ethics. And can we talk about how you perceive the dangers of AGI? And specifically, do you think the biggest danger from AGI is going to come from a cataclysmic event which makes all the papers? Or is it going to be more subtle and pernicious, sort of like how everybody has ADD right now from using TikTok?
Right.
Are you more concerned about the subtle dangers or the cataclysmic dangers? Or neither?
I'm more concerned about the subtle dangers because I think we're more likely to overlook those. The cataclysmic dangers, a lot of people talk about and a lot of people think about. And I don't want to minimize those. I think they're really serious and a real thing. But I think we at least know to look out for that and spend a lot of effort. The example you gave of everybody getting ADD from TikTok or whatever, I don't think we knew to look out for. And that's a really hard, the unknown unknowns are really hard, and so I'd worry more about those, although I worry about both.
And are they unknown unknowns? Are there any that you can name that you're particularly worried about?
Well, then I would they'd be unknown.
Well, you can.
I am worried just about, so even though I think in the short term things change less than we think, as with other major technologies, in the long term I think they change more than we think. And I am worried about what rate society can adapt to something so new and how long it'll take us to figure out the new social contract versus how long we get to do it. I'm worried about that.
Okay. I'm gonna open it up soon. So I want to ask you a question about one of the key things that we're now trying to inculcate into the curriculum as things change so rapidly is resilience.
That's really good.
And and the cornerstone of resilience is self-awareness. And I'm wondering if you feel that you're pretty self-aware of your driving motivations as you are embarking on this journey.
So first of all, I think I believe resilience can be taught. I believe it has long been one of the most important life skills. And in the future, I think over the next couple of decades, I think resilience and adaptability will be more important than they've been in a very long time. So I think that's really great. On the self-awareness question, I think I'm self-aware, but I think like everybody thinks they're self-aware, and whether I am or not is sort of like hard to say from the inside.
And can I ask you sort of the questions that we ask in our intro classes on self-awareness?
Sure.
It's like the Peter Drucker framework. So what do you think your greatest strengths are, Sam?
I think I'm not great at many things, but I'm good at a lot of things. And I think breadth has become an underrated thing in the world. Everyone gets like hyper specialized. So if you're good at a lot of things, you can seek connections across them. I think you can then kind of come up with the ideas that are different than everybody else has, or that sort of the experts in one area have.
And what are your most dangerous weaknesses?
Most dangerous, that's an interesting framework for it. I think I have like a general bias to be too pro-technology, just because I'm curious and I want to see where it goes, and I believe that technology is on the whole a net good thing. But I think that is a worldview that has overall served me and others well, and thus gotten like a lot of positive reinforcement, and is not always true, and when it's not been true, has been like pretty bad for a lot of people.
And then Harvard psychologist David McClelland has this framework that all leaders are driven by one of three primal needs: a need for affiliation, which is a need to be liked, a need for achievement, and a need for power. If you had to rank list those, what would be yours?
I think at various times in my career, all of those, I think they're these like levels that people go through. At this point, I feel driven by like wanting to do something useful and interesting.
Okay. And
but I think I definitely had like the money and the power and the status phases.
Okay. And then where were you when you last felt most like yourself?
I always
feel
yeah.
like yourself. That's good. Okay. And then one last question. And what are you most excited about with ChatGPT 5 that's coming out that people don't? What are you most excited about with the release of ChatGPT 5 that we're all going to see?
I don't know yet. I This sounds like a cop-out answer, but I think the most important thing about GPT-5 or whatever we call that is just that it's going to be smarter. And this sounds like a dodge, but I think that's like among the most remarkable facts in human history, that we can just do something and we can say right now with a high degree of scientific certainty, GPT-5 is going to be a lot smarter than GPT-4. GPT-6 is going to be a lot smarter than GPT-5. And we are not near the top of this curve, and we kind of know what to do. And this is not like it's going to get better in one area. This is not like we're going to, it's not that it's always going to get better at this eval or this subject or this modality. It's just going to be smarter in the general sense. And I think the gravity of that statement is still like underrated.
Okay, that's great. Sam, guys, Sam is really here for you. He wants to answer your question. So we're going to open it up.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm a junior here at Stanford. I sort of wanted to talk to you about responsible deployment of AGI. So as you guys continually inch closer to that, how do you plan to deploy that responsibly at OpenAI, to prevent stifling human innovation and continue to spur that?
So I'm actually not worried at all about stifling of human innovation. I really deeply believe that people will just surprise us on the upside with better tools. I think all of history suggests that if you give people more leverage, they do more amazing things. And that's kind of like, we all get to benefit from that. That's just kind of great. I am, though, increasingly worried about how we're going to do this all responsibly. I think as the models get more capable, we have a higher and higher bar. We do a lot of things like red teaming and external audits, and I think those are all really good. But I think as the models get more capable, we'll have to deploy even more iteratively, have an even tighter feedback loop on looking at how they're used and where they work and where they don't work. And this world that we used to do, where we can release a major model update every couple of years, we probably have to find ways to like increase the granularity on that and deploy more iteratively than we have in the past. And it's not super obvious to us yet how to do that, but I think that'll be key to responsible deployment. And also the way we kind of have all of the stakeholders negotiate what the rules of AI need to be, that's going to get more complex over time too.
Thank you. Next question right here.
You mentioned before that there's a growing need for larger and larger computers and faster computers. However, many parts of the world don't have the infrastructure to build those data centers or those large computers. How do you see global innovation being impacted by that?
So two parts to that. One, no matter where the computers are built, I think global and equitable access to use the computers for training as well as inference is super important. One of the things that's like very core to our mission is that we make ChatGPT available for free to as many people as want to use it, with the exception of certain countries where we either can't or don't, for a good reason, want to operate. How we think about making training compute more available to the world is going to become increasingly important. I do think we get to a world where we sort of think about it as a human right to get access to a certain amount of compute, and we got to figure out how to like distribute that to people all around the world. There's a second thing, though, which is I think countries are going to increasingly realize the importance of having their own AI infrastructure, and we want to figure out a way, and we're now spending a lot of time traveling around the world to build them in the many countries that will want to build these, and I hope we can play some small role there in helping that happen.
Terrific, thank you.
My question was, what role do you envision for AI in the future of like space exploration or like colonization?
I think space is like not that hospitable for biological life, obviously. And so if we can send the robots, that seems easier.
Hey, Sam. So my question is for a lot of the founders in the room. And I'm going to give you the question, and then I'm going to explain why I think it's complicated. So my question is about how you know an idea is non-consensus. And the reason I think it's complicated is because it's easy to overthink. I think today, even yourself says AI is the place to start a company. I think that's pretty consensus. Maybe rightfully so. It's an inflection point. I think it's hard to know if an idea is non-consensus depending on the group that you're talking about. The general public has a different view of tech from the tech community, and even tech elites have a different point of view from the tech community. So I was wondering how you verify that your idea is non-consensus enough to pursue.
I mean, first of all, what you really want is to be right. Being contrarian and wrong is still as wrong. And if you predicted like 17 out of the last 2 recessions, you probably were contrarian for the 2 you got right. Probably, not even necessarily. But you were wrong 15 other times. And so I think it's easy to get too excited about being contrarian. And again, like the most important thing is to be right. And the group is usually right. But where the most value is when you are contrarian and right. And that doesn't always happen in like sort of a 0 or 1 kind of way. Like everybody in the room can agree that AI is the right place to start a company. And if one person in the room figures out the right company to start and then successfully executes on that and everybody else thinks, oh, that wasn't the best thing you could do, that's what matters. So it's okay to kind of like go with conventional wisdom when it's right and then find the area where you have some unique insight. In terms of how to do that, I do think surrounding yourself with the right peer group is really important, and finding original thinkers is important. But there is part of this where you kind of have to do it solo, or at least part of it solo, or with a few other people who are like, going to be your co-founders or whatever. And I think by the time you're too far in the like, how can I find the right peer group, you're somehow in the wrong framework already. So like learning to trust yourself and your own intuition and your own thought process, which gets much easier over time. No one, no matter what they say, I think is like truly great at this when they're just starting out. Yeah, because like you kind of just haven't built the muscle, and like all of your social pressure and all of like the evolutionary pressure that produced you was against that. So it's something that like you get better at over time, and don't hold yourself to too high of a standard too early on it.
Hi, Sam. I'm curious to know what your predictions are for how energy demand will change in the coming decades and how we achieve a future where renewable energy sources are 1 cent per kilowatt hour.
I mean, it will go up for sure. Well, not for sure. You can come up with all these weird ways in which like depressing futures where it doesn't go up. I would like it to go up a lot. I hope that we hold ourselves to a high enough standard where it does go up. I forget exactly what the kind of world's electrical generating capacity is right now, but let's say it's like 3,000, 4,000 gigawatts, something like that. Even if we add another 100 gigawatts for AI, it doesn't materially change it that much. But it changes it some, and if we start at 1,000 gigawatts for AI someday, that's a material change. But there are a lot of other things that we want to do, and energy does seem to correlate quite a lot with quality of life we can deliver for people. My guess is that fusion eventually dominates electrical generation on Earth. I think it should be the cheapest, most abundant, most reliable, densest source. I could be wrong on that, and it could be solar plus storage. And my guess most likely is it's going to be 80-20 one way or the other, and there'll be some cases where one of those is better than the other. But those kind of seem like the 2 bets for like really global scale 1 cent per kilowatt hour energy.